Hey guys, how are you? How's everyone going? We got Dinah and Steven and Sandra and Eduardo. Hello, Eduardo. How are you? Nice to see you back. So last time we did Alchemy stream, right at the end as I was closing everything up, we had Black Pigeon Speak come in and he was like, hey, is this ending? And I think he likes a lot of this esoteric talk. I think he's a really deep kind of guy. So I don't know. I didn't message him or anything, but hopefully he pops back in here before the end of the stream. That'll be really fun. He contributes some good stuff to the conversation. And I didn't do the alchemy stream last week, and then I didn't do the art stream on Tuesday, so I was like, okay, I have to do alchemy stream. I have to do it. So here we are, and last time I was doing a recap of the previous alchemy stream on the elements, and I ended up just like rehashing everything all over again. And so this is the actual part 2, so you don't want to rehash everything, and I think pretty much a lot of the people in the stream right now were in the last one, so that's good. But just as a reminder, we were talking about spiritual growth and what the word spirit means, and it's like the inner true self, and how to kind of tap into your inner true self and able to feed your spiritual inner self with the elements. And when we talk about the elements, we're not really necessarily always talking about the actual 4 elements: fire, air, earth, and water. A lot of that throughout history and throughout cultures, those elements are used as archetypes of other things that have those elemental properties. Let me go through my notes. But for example, we also talk about the 5th element can be known as quintessence, but we also kind of talk about it as this concept of space. So just like space, vastness, it represents expansiveness. So sometimes it's not literal space, but something that represents something expansive. And air has this representation of something mobile, like mobility. Air is constantly moving around, and it's very mobile. And fire represents temperature. So when you talk about temperament, it's usually like a fire inside of you or something that is related to temperament, temperature. So has that correlation. And water is fluidity. So when you talk about something with the element of water, it represents fluids, usually sex. Anything sexual related is fluids. You talk about sexual fluids. Emotion has to do with waters. Things. Yeah, we'll get into it a little bit more. Earth represents solidity, so when they talk about earth or stone or something like that, it represents like something solid and fixed. Something like our earthly beings, something that is like solid and fixed in this world that represents actual physical things. So yeah, let's get back into it. Let me just see what's going on. Hey, we have John Dave sent $5. Thanks for that. Hey, John Dave. He said free SC from YT from YouTube, sending it your way, Martina. Free. What is SC? What are you talking about? Super chats. Free super chats from YouTube. Okay, sending it your way, Martina. Cool. Thank you. I really appreciate that. So we have Jim O'Reilly says comes from Tendai Buddhism called Gyoko or Godai methods of explaining the universe. Yeah, and a lot of times in my notes I have that I took, they do have elements of Buddhism and stuff, and there is a lot of correlation between things, cultures around the world that have this concept. And I mean, it's a pretty universal concept of trying to understand the universe and our purpose here on it. And so a lot of cultures all throughout the world, throughout history, have kind of honed into a lot of similar aspects. When I studied in China, there was a lot of similar aspects as well with like qi and the elements that they have, that they use, and there's a lot of similarities. It's different but similar. I'm mostly familiar with the Western version of alchemy, Western alchemy, so that is the lens that I view it, but there is a lot of similarities, and I love that conversation. So if you guys know a little bit more about something that I'm talking about that's similar, please share it. It's really exciting. Yeah, Jim O'Reilly says there are negative aspects to each element as well, i.e. earth means solidity, but its negative source is to static or boredom. Yeah, that's absolutely true. And that's something that we will get into, but it's this concept of when you are starting to kind of understand your inner self and come to terms with things and your flaws and really try to understand, you come to face, what is it called? It's in my notes. Let me get into it. Hold on. Let me find it. We will get into it, but the ordeals. So yeah, that is what you're talking about. The negative aspects of those four elements. They call it the four ordeals. And we'll get into that. But yeah, you have to come face to face with some of these aspects that are negative, but they ultimately help you to become perfected, become closer to that source, that life source within yourself, within your spirit. And, what we talked about. Spirit meaning, translating to breath. So let me catch back up with... It's going to be tough catching up with your comments as well as kind of getting into this stuff. So sorry about that. Kitty, do you have to really start doing stuff while I'm streaming? Kitty, stop. Hey. Stop. Hey, what's up, Sam Jarvis? Nice to see you. Oh, hey, Grey Wolf. What's up? Okay. Get back into it. Our descent into matter. So this is where it affects us and how we've come to our being. Our inner consciousness, our true nature, enters into manifestation in the way that is described here. At the ultimate root of our self is space. Yeah. Inside that space is our true self. That is the Ein Sof, or the inner light. The ray of creation. It passes through that space. That space in Hinduism is called the highest level Prakriti. At the highest level, it becomes Akash. That Akash is space, which becomes air, fire, earth, water. These are the different qualities of the consciousness as it enters into manifestation. A long time ago, when the spark of light descended out of the absolute, when our spark first came into matter for the first time, we did not come into matter as human being. We came into matter as a simple spark of light that needed to learn, grow, and develop. So it started at the lowest level as a simple mineral element. We started at the bottom as an element, as a simple spark of consciousness in nature. Slowly, we developed through many eons, through the kingdoms of the elements. So there are three elemental kingdoms, and when you study alchemy, you go through those elemental kingdoms when you study. It's kind of like calculus, or reminds me of calculus, right? So there's like I don't know, let's just say Calc 1. So that's basic calculus, instantaneous rates of change and acceleration and all that stuff. And then let's say, and that's the mineral kingdom, that's the first level that we're at. And let's say, like, I'm going to skip Calc 2 because it's integrals, but it's still the same kind of like 2D world that we're dealing with. So it's like add like planes, like 2 dimensions, and then say 3 dimensions, so that's Calc 3. 3-dimensional calculus, that's when you add plants to it. So that's another level of this elemental kingdom, like taking another, it's a little bit more complicated. Minerals are kind of basic, and then when you add plants to it, these are like even more living and more complicated beings. And then there's the animal elemental kingdom that you study in alchemy, and that is like even more complex and dynamic. So I would be like, I don't know, studying another dimension of calculus or something. I always relate things to math. Sorry about it. Sorry if that gets you more confused. But yeah, those are 3 elemental kingdoms. And when you, let's say, start practicing the physical alchemy, the chemistry alchemy, the laboratory work, you start with minerals, and that's like the most basic thing that you can learn the process of, and then you do like the same things through plants, and then you add it to the animals. It's just like far more complex. So from the earth, plants; from the plants, food, animals; and from the food, animals, man. Each kingdom has these 4 elements: air, fire, water, earth, developing as qualities. That is why the spark that evolved there are called elementals. Let me show you this picture I'm working with. Let me just catch up with you guys. Okay. Jim O'Reilly, nice to have you in here. You're having some great stuff to say. It says that is known as void, or actually devoid of value. Very interesting and useful tool. Oh, hey to Eduardo, that's no problem. He usually has some really interesting things to say as well. He said he won't be active in the chat, but he's listening. He's listening. He has 2 reports to make. Okay. Sam Jarvis is liking the topic already. Am I familiar with the works of Gwenon and Evola? Not that first one, but Evola, yes. We have talked about that in some of the art streams. Actually, we did mention Evola in the, if you go back to some of my streams, there's an art stream about Dadaism, and that was, Evola was involved with Dadaism, and I am a fan of his because he has that trifecta that I absolutely love, which is art, alchemy, and right-wing politics. So yeah, he's awesome. We bring him up time to time. Um, there are two tools, the Godai or five elements, which explains how the universe is, and the Gokyo or five elements explains how the universe operates. The third tool, or Semitsu, is for manifesting. Yeah, and I think that, again, everything parallels things like that. It may be different in Buddhism, with the technical words, or maybe a little aspects of it different, but ultimately it is similar. It's like understanding the physical world, understanding the spiritual world, and then learning how to manifest change through that. Oh, thanks, Stephen, for the Evola stream. Okay, so let me share with you this picture. What was I just talking about? Yeah, the three elemental kingdoms, and each of those elemental kingdoms have the four elements within them. Let me share the screen. Yeah, so at the bottom we have the mineral kingdom. And this is ascending arc of evolution, decay, regression. Oh, wait, no, sorry. Growth, progression, improvement, complication. And then there's the plant kingdom, the animal kingdom, the humanoid kingdom, and up top here, which I would represent as Kether, the crown and the tree of life, the conscious evolution in higher kingdoms. And this is the descending arc: devolution, decay, regression, degeneration, simplification. So cool. Gradually, while simple sparks in the mineral kingdom, we evolved to becoming more sophisticated, and eventually we began using plant bodies. After a long period of time where that consciousness was growing in the existence at the level of plants, we gradually became animals. What here is called food, really all the elements are food in the cycle of nature. Even we are food for nature. Gradually, after many eons of development, we became more knowledgeable and experienced with the interrelationship between consciousness, matter, and energy. So we then entered into the humanoid kingdom. That is, we are elementals who are in humanoid bodies. Humanoid body. I love the word humanoid. It's cool. We are animals who have intellect. And this is what I find really interesting, because I started noticing throughout the years that leftists praise animals in the animal kingdom above humans. Now, don't get me wrong, I have a kitty, I have respect for animals. I mean, you should have respect for everything, all of the kingdoms on the earth, but they put animal above humanoid, and I just think that that's totally wrong. We have this something different from animals, and I think it's a sin to start putting them above us. I mean, if there is an animal that needs help, and I had a choice between helping the animal or a child or another human, it's no question it's helping the human. But today's world, I'm not sure people would pick an animal over human nowadays.
Hey lady, miss your face. Just saying hi and sorry for being absent lately. Love ya.
Oh, that is so sweet. Thanks, Michael Kolchinsky. That is so awesome, so sweet, and nice to see you around. No worries, I tend to be really lazy doing these streams. I hate streaming. So I'm glad to see you were around. It's really, really nice. He said, hey lady, miss ya. Sorry he hasn't been around. Cool. Yeah, you guys are definitely keeping on track with the topic in the comments. It's really, really great. I'm really happy about that. Talking about the elements, the emojis, great. Okay. Oh. Ooh, new subscriber. Cool, cool. Let's get back into it. Okay, yeah, so now we found ourselves, we are animals who have intellect. Now we find ourselves in a mess because being in the humanoid kingdom for a while, we have made a lot of mistakes and we have forgotten where we have come from. We have forgotten who we are. We need to learn. So that's the whole point of doing alchemy and understanding all these concepts, is to relearn the things that we forgot. And it's really important. The fifth element. Here are the 5 elements outlined. Space, air, fire, water, earth. Space is the first element to emerge out of the being, which relates to the absolute. From space comes the air. From the air comes the fire. From the fire comes the water. And finally, there is the earth. These are the 5 elements that we find in every religion. In many cases, the lower 4 are specified because the 5th is the secret. The lower 4 comes from the space, but this element is, so like the main 4 elements that we know come from the secret space, the 5th element. But this element is usually left unexplained. It is called the 5th element because from the earth going upwards towards more subtle, it is the 5th element. The 5th element is the one we need. In most written scriptures and documents about the secret tradition, the 5th is left undefined. Oop, I just repeated myself, sorry. If we study the scriptures of alchemy, for example, in the West, we can find a lot written about these 4 elements, which some alchemists, such as Paracelsus, even condensed as 3. Yet the 5th is always there, and we may talk about that in the future. These 5 elements are not physical. We are not concerned with the physical aspects. They relate to physical matter, obviously. Our physical fire is a reflection of spiritual fire, but we are not concerned with the physical aspect. We need to be concerned with the spiritual. This is what it's about, spiritual growth. Being an alchemist does require the physical, the outer work, the physical stuff, but for the most part, these lectures are going to be the inner works, the spiritual aspect of alchemy. Attributes of the 5 elements. We need to understand what these 5 symbolize. Space represents expansiveness. Oh yeah, I went through that. Air represents mobility. Fire represents temperature. Water represents fluidity. Earth represents solidity. Space represents the attributes of the absolute. Psychologically and spiritually, it represents expansiveness. If you have ever studied Chinese Taoism, it is all about the 5th element, space. The way of the Tao is the way of being expansive, all-embracing, all-awareness, all-encompassing, non-reactive, capable of receiving anything and not being disturbed because there's no room in oneself. Air symbolizes the psychological and spiritual quality of mobility, flexibility, movement. Fire reflects the spiritual and psychological characteristic of temperature. Our psychological temperature, our spiritual temperature, this relates with our temperament. The 4th is water, which relates to fluidity, the ability to be spiritually and psychologically fluid or flexible. And finally, the element earth is solidity, firmness, to have a strong conscious foundation, a powerful strength, willpower. These 5 elements in any scripture symbolize these psychological and spiritual qualities that we need to develop and understand. Of primary importance to us is how these elements relate with the nature of our consciousness, not our personality. Okay? There's a difference between our consciousness and our personality. Not our mind either, but consciousness. This is where these 5 elements are most important in qualities of consciousness. They do reflect into our qualities of our ego and personality, because the ego and personality are created through misuse of consciousness. Yet, since ego and personality are impertinent and not trustworthy, what we really need to grasp is how to utilize these 5 qualities with the free, awakened consciousness. Let me just check in on you guys. Be like water. Yes. There's like a song that has that in it. I love it. I love it. Be like water. Okay. Just checking in on you guys. Cool. Our minds are noisy. They sure are. When we study these 5 elements in Hinduism, Buddhism, and Gnosis, we find that there are many attributes related to them. So this graphic, which I will show you guys in a second, shows you, this graphic will show you many attributes, and they are all important and have practical value. So the thing is, too, people, especially on the right, will mock, like, astrology and stuff like that, but like there's more to it than like opening up a Cosmopolitan magazine and reading your prediction of what like the future, what you should do that week or something. That's like totally fake. I get it, it's like stupid, but there are other aspects to astrology, like all of the astrological signs have one of the elements associated to it. There's 3 of them go into each element. Me being a Cancer is water, but it gets like more complicated, and they all have associations. So it's similar to this, where the element. So ether here, where it says Akash, ether. That's the space. That's the ether, the quintessence, the space that they talk about. And the color is black. The mantra is Ha. Planet is Saturn. Same with the astrology. They have associated elements. I don't really understand what the regent is, because that's like some weird Buddhism stuff. I'm not familiar with that. Element AZF. I'm gonna have to look at my notes to see what that means. Punctas. What is that? Anyway, air is blue. The mantra is Ya. Mercury and grape juice, and I will explain what this stuff means. Fire is red. Ra, Mars. That all makes sense. Ra is also sun. It's a sun god, Ra. So fire. Oh well. Okay. Yeah. So maybe no. Earth is sun. Huh. Interesting. Okay. Red meat, fire. Water, white. Va, Venus, moon. Yeah, that makes sense. Moon is my ruling planet. Water. Fish makes sense. Fish. Earth is yellow. La, sun. Brahma. Grains is represented. Gnomes and pygmies. It's funny. So yeah, let me look at my notes to see exactly what these associations mean. However, we are not going to spend a lot of time on the graph. If you want to study it in detail, read the book Tarot and Kabbalah by Samuel Unwar. These attributes and relationships are really important, and they become more important to you the further you go along in your spiritual process. Yeah, that's exactly true, because a lot of times when you look up any of these books, like whether it's Modern Magic by, I think his name's Daniel Craig. Maybe that's just the actor, but it's something Craig. Hold on. Modern Craig. Yeah, Donald Michael Craig, yeah. Modern Magic. This book is really good, actually. I recommend it. good stuff. Yeah, and also the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. That book, a lot of these like books that you study, like a lot of the first lessons are these associations, and they seem kind of random, just like memorizing stupid dumb stuff. But again, it's kind of like math, where you have to learn, I don't know, how to FOIL, how to factor and shit, and it's like all these random rules and things and PEMDAS, and it's just like it seems kind of arbitrary. But as you progress in math and you start to study calculus, those rules and stuff kind of make sense, and those they have a purpose for that, and you can start to see the bigger picture about it, and the world starts to have a little bit of order when you can understand the associations. So not 11, take 12 lessons in modern magic. Yeah, I think just like 11 or 12. Sorry. I'm just checking in on you guys. You're doing good. Good. Cool. I like you guys are staying on topic. I really love that. Thanks. But yeah, like I said, these relationships start to really come clearer and understand the importance of them the more that you go further with this stuff. You guys understand. A lot of you guys already know what it is that I'm talking about. Oh shit. Actually, I think I wanted to message someone that I was streaming. Sorry, hold on 1 second. I forgot. Shit. There's a few people. I'm streaming. Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to let her know that. Okay, back on topic. Yeah, these attributes and relationships are really important and become more important to you the further you go along in your spiritual process. Briefly, what I want to point out in this chart is that every element also has a mantric value, a sound that stimulates that quality. So that's what that whole ha or ya, ra, va, or la is. And when you do a lot of magical studies, that's what you do. It's called like you vibrate like these sounds, and it's like the mantra. You guys know how mantras are and the importance of them. I mean, we do them in mass as well, in ritual mass in Catholicism. Doing some of these hymns and these prayers, they they don't just say the words, they kind of sing them out, they vibrate them out, and there's a purpose for that. It's kind of like that sound, the frequency that you're putting into the universe is that's the magic in that, and it affects your spirit and yourself, along with communicating with God. I really like math. Yeah, I studied math. So, sorry about it. That was my major. Okay. By working with mantra or vibration, there you go, conscious energy, these qualities can be developed, invoked, and nourished. Some mantras are related to all the elements. For example, the mantra Om Mani Padme Hum. Yeah, see, I don't really know the Hinduism stuff. I'm more into like, I am not a singer. I don't want to say it, so I'm being really embarrassed, but like in mass, when you're just like, hallelujah, like that whole shit. Oh my god, I cannot sing. They do these like vibrations and rituals in private. But yeah, there's a lot of like different kind of sounds that one makes in mass, and when they're turning the body and blood of the bread and the wine into the body and blood, and it's like you do these like and it's a ritual, it's a mass, so you're vibrating things. Sorry, just checking on you guys every once in a while. I love that you guys are talking about it. For today's lecture, the mantra of specific importance is related with the fifth element, the Akash or ether. That mantra is Ha. Or you say it as like Ha. If you, hold on. Yeah, it's related to the six-pointed star. and which you guys may be familiar with. The six-pointed star, it's basically, some people might consider it the Star of David. It's not really the name of it, but it's two triangles pointed upwards and pointed downwards together, and it creates the six-pointed star. And it represents like as above, so below. It represents all the elements. I think the five-pointed star, also the pentagram, represents 5 elements. It's the 4 elements and the 5th one. But yeah. Sorry, hold on. Wait, I'm trying to see. Yeah, the 6-pointed star. That's, yeah. So from the ether, the air, then fire, then water, and the earth, and all the elements come out of Akash or ether, and that makes the vibration Ha the most important. And then it gets into the Hinduism again, but it's like I can't say these things. I don't really know what I'm talking about with that. Alright, let me just see what this is saying. Hold on. The tattvas. In Hinduism, these 5 elements are called tattvas. The word tattvas means truth, thatness. The term is used to describe the fundamental forces at work throughout nature. There are innumerable forces at work, thus there are innumerable tattvas. For simplicity's sake, we use the basic system of 5 tattvas. So yeah, there's a lot of different elements happening, but we can represent them all through the 5. All 5 tattvas are vibrations of the same root energy, but are different by the qualities of their movement. The earth, fire, air, water all come from the Akash, the ether. They are just modifications of ether. Yayu, the air, is the mobility of ether. The earth, or the tattva of earth, is the solidity of the ether Akash. This might seem theoretical or unimportant to you, but if you want to have any real impact on changing your life or helping to influence the lives of others, this will become the most important thing you know. And why is that? Most everyone who wants to be spiritual wants to be a priest or priestess. That is so true, because the high priestess is my jams. That is what I really want to be about. Sorry, I'm just checking in on you guys. Oh, cool. Thanks for that on the Evola thing. I'm going to screen cap that and check that out. Okay, so get back to it. Yeah, so everyone who wants to be spiritual wants to be like a priest or priestess. So true. That is the goal, to become someone who has power. Where does the priest or priestess get their power? The ancient word for priest is magi. Okay, and if you ever heard of the 3 magi's, you guys might know them as the 3 kings in the Bible, the 3 magi's. Magi means magician. It means priest. Okay, Zoroastrian priest. So this is what really annoys me when people start like freaking out, the LARPers, about magic or alchemy or any of that stuff. I'm like, guys, 3 magi's. The word magi, it's a priest. You know, a magician is just a priest. Look at mass. Like I say, it's a ritual. It's a magical ritual. And yeah, in a sense, it is about power. Like, you know, when you start getting into this stuff, I mean, really what it's about is understanding your true self and your true purpose, and in a sense that can be powerful, but sometimes people get into it for the wrong reasons of power. But yeah, if you have ever heard of the 3 magi's or 3 kings, which is Malachim in Hebrew, those were 3 priests. From mag, we get the word magician. I hate this fucking lipstick. I was just telling Jack, I'm like, put this lipstick on that's like this waterproof shit. And it's not like normal lipstick, which is kind of like, it's like creamy, you know? It's like chapstick. I mean, you just rub your lips together. But it's like fucking, what is it called? This water-resistant, waterproof lipstick is like, makes it tacky. Like, look up. It's like making my lips stick together. Hate it. So I was trying to say the word magician and it stuck my lips together. It's awkward. Yeah. I don't want to be a priest. That sounds boring. Oh, wait. Did you say magician? I'm down for that. Give me power of the world around me. Exactly. I mean, it's the same thing. Really. Yeah, so from Maj we get the word magician. A priest or magician is someone who knows how to work with the forces of nature, both outside and inside. Okay? Just think about that. I'm going to say that again. The ancient word for priest is maj. And if you ever heard of the three magi's or three kings, those were three priests. From maj, we get the word magician. A priest or a magician is someone who knows how to work with the forces of nature both outside and inside. I mean, pretty freaking cool. Like Moses, he was a great priest, but a great magician. He commanded the water, the air, the fire, and the earth. He commanded them outside of himself, literally, physically. And also Nicholas Flamel, who's a famous alchemist. Basil Valentine, is that how you say it? I don't know if it's Basil Valentine. Paracelsus, Hermes Trismegistus, Jesus of Nazareth, Krishna. Let me see what else. Yeah, they were all magicians, priests. And that's something that LARPers also forget or don't realize, is that Jesus was a priest. He was a magician. He performed things, miracles and spells and stuff like that. Let me see. Sorry, I'm just reading what you guys are talking about. Okay. Yeah, Jesus, Moses, Hermes Trismegistus, Nicholas Flamel, they were all magicians, priests. The power that they had and still have is derived from the tattvas, the 5 elements, and not from anywhere else. The power to command nature is the ability to conquer, command, and control these elements. That Akash, that inner space, air, water, fire, and earth. That begins outside of oneself, not outside of oneself, but inside. We have to first command the elements inside of ourselves to control our own kingdom, our own earth. And when we can command those forces in ourselves, then by the laws of nature, we can also command them outside. As above, so below. If you can control the forces here in your own earthly, in your own earth, physically, psychologically, spiritually, you can do it outside also. This is accomplished by understanding that these elements are not matter in the form we think matter exists, which is dead matter. Okay? Matter is not dead. Sam Jarvis. Sam Jarvis says, true, Moses was basically a member of the biblical Avengers in that comic book called The Bible. I love it. And how do you start to control your forces? That's the question. Exactly, and that is the purpose of these lessons and understanding alchemy. So let us continue. we have the very mistaken idea that matter is inert, lifeless, and dead. But we are wrong. We observe a cup of water and we think it is dead matter, lifeless, lacking in consciousness. And we think and we think that the water and the cup are just a bunch of atoms, molecules, and minerals sitting there and are nothing more. But we are wrong. Similarly, when we read any scripture and we read about the elements, we think of physical elements and that physical elements are dead matter. But we are wrong. Every atom in nature is a trinity of matter, energy, and consciousness. And I think that trinity is also in alchemy when we look at something, whether it's mineral alchemy or work or plant work or the animal work. You make elixirs and you do stuff, you derive the three things from them. It's like the salt, the spirit, and shit. Hold on. Not the perfect alchemist. Hold on. 3 alchemy. So there's the salt, spirit. What's the other one? What are the 3 principles of alchemy? Oh, the sulfur. Yeah, the salt, mercury, and sulfur. But I think that the spirit is also one of those, interchangeable. So those are like the 3 things. When they talk about that, and you read alchemical texts, and they talk about the salt, mercury, and sulfur, it's not literal salt, mercury, and sulfur. They're talking about the matter of it, and then they're talking about the energy and consciousness of it. Every atom in nature has matter. Every atom in nature has energy. And those we can verify easily. But what we do not realize is that every atom also has consciousness. Nowadays, fortunately, even though it may be too late, finally the scientists are beginning to recognize that this is a fact and that all atoms have consciousness. As they are performing experiments with quantum physics, they are discovering that the consciousness of the scientists affects the experiment. I encourage you guys to watch some videos about the double slit experiment, and that is where we get that whole, what do they call it? A riddle about like a tree falling in a forest, and if no one's there to hear it, does it make a noise? Because it's a quantum physics thing. Because if no one's there to witness it, does it react the same way? And that's what the double split experiment in quantum physics is about. When the consciousness of the scientist is observing the behavior of a quanta of light, the light changes its behavior. Seriously, guys, check it out. It's really cool. Called the double slit experiment in quantum physics. There's some cool cartoons about it. And if that quanta is not being observed, it behaves differently. And scientists don't understand why. It's crazy. All atoms are like this. Every atom as a consciousness at its level. All atoms have a spark of consciousness and essence, just like we have. Obviously, the consciousness of an atom is not the same as the consciousness of a humanoid like us. Atoms are much simpler than we are because they are at the beginning of their manifestation, whereas human organisms are far more advanced than a simple atom of hydrogen. Yet, millennia ago, we were evolving at the same atoms as sparks of consciousness that were at the beginning, that was just the beginning to develop. All the atoms here and now are like that, beginning on a long process of evolution. Only a few will reach the level that we are now. Similarly, only a few of us will go beyond this level to higher levels of consciousness. Okay, sorry. Just checking in on you guys. Everything, let me see. Oh, shit. Jack? Can you make me some tea, too? Just leave it in the kitchen. for me when it's ready. Everything has consciousness at its own level. We can compare the consciousness of a humanoid to the consciousness of a hydrogen atom in the same way we can compare the physical body of a humanoid with the physical body of the sun. The scale is simply too huge to conceptualize accurately. Nonetheless, we need to understand this similitude and that all atoms have consciousness. All atoms have consciousness in relation to these elements, not only the atoms, but all of the matter, all of the organisms, all of living things. The magician, the priest, knows that and knows how to use it. So do we understand what we're talking about? The concept of like atoms having not just matter to it, but energy and consciousness, and understanding that concept and knowing what to do with that is how we start to become the magician and the priest. What kind of tea? Regular tea. Just like British tea with milk. Jack's doing alchemy, basically. Okay, let's get back to it. When Moses parted the waters, how did he do that? He commanded the elementals of the waters, but it was not the terrestrial body of Moses that did it. It was the innermost Moses, the spirit, the inner being, that worked through the human part, the psyche. Our consciousness enters into matter, into energy, to become that trinity in order for that trinity to grow. Our purpose is to become a being with power, filled with knowledge of how all things work. That knowledge should give rise to great love for all beings. To be a magician, we need to learn how these 5 elements work in ourselves physically, psychologically, spiritually, and be able to control them and command them. And it is not an easy task. This is a task that requires an enormous amount of self-knowledge and a lot of study and training. So we are introducing these 5 elements so that we can start to see them in nature and in ourselves. These 5 elements are living forces, not dead. They are not inert matter. They have consciousness inside of all of us and outside of us. Even merely on the physical level, everything about us physically is a process of interaction of these 5 elements. When we eat, drink, walk, talk, we are using energy. And all that energy has been made available to us through the process of transformation, through our eating and drinking and breathing, and through the energy of the consciousness that is active in our bodies. All of that motion of energy inside of us, we do not do it consciously. We are not digesting our food consciously. We are not transferring the oxygen into the bloodstream consciously. We are not managing the forces and fluids in our glandular system, in our, what is it called? Yeah, in our glandular system consciously. It is happening on its own. And how? Well, we may have a lot of scientific explanations of technically how this happens in matter, but all matter is a trinity of matter, energy, and consciousness. So what about the consciousness of your stomach, the consciousness of your bloodstream, and your heart, and your lungs, and in your liver? There is consciousness there, but not your consciousness, because we are asleep, unaware of what our liver is doing right now. Somebody is aware, but who? The elementals in the body. An uncountable number of monads serve us physically. Our physicality is constituted by atoms that are not as developed as we are, but who are growing and learning. They are in the process of growing and learning. These are atoms, these are atomic intelligences. If you want to know more about this, there's a book called Dayspring of Youth by M. And the whole book is about this. Within us, there's a huge, complex, and beautiful system that we all ignore, and it all has its own consciousness to it. Those atoms are related to the elements. Those atoms are intelligences in nature. Moreover, everything we eat and we drink is related with the elements. When you eat a plant, you are eating the physical body of an elemental. You are killing it so that you can live. And that is the plant's role in nature, to die for you so that you can live, so that you can grow. And you have to ask yourself if you're using it well. And do you respect the plant? Are you grateful for the plant? Are you grateful to the animal? Do you express gratitude? Do you express that understanding and knowledge consciously? Every single thing you eat, drink, and breathe has consciousness, and you are killing it, and you have to, and that is part of nature. Let me just check in on you guys. Sorry about this stuff. Dave Incognito gave $5. Hey, what's up? He says, F this stupid dating site. eHarmony is a waste of time and money. This, however, is a good expenditure because I can warn the rest of you. Hi, by the way. I am so sorry, Dave Incognito. I think I may have tried some of those dating sites and stuff before, but yeah, totally a waste of time. Yep. Sorry. Oh, Pablo's in here. What's up, guys? Sorry, catching up on you guys. Yeah, okay, Freedom just said this article is for the sincere. I think he shared something. Read Saving This Sacred Seed. This article is for all the sincere men out there that want to grow spiritually and not be empty-headed, disappointing to women. Men who think it's okay to waste their seed. Most men are seed wasters. Yeah, and that's true. And someone said, what about cum? Yeah, that's part of sex magic, because your cum does have energy and life source and stuff in it that is actually extremely powerful, especially through the act of that sexual energy that is being created. And so, yeah, it definitely is powerful, and it is part of magic. So, yeah, that's a really interesting book. I would look into that, and thank you for that, Freedom Justice. It sounds really interesting. Okay, let's get back into it. Spiritual nourishment. So, as I was just reading all those notes, hopefully you made sense of it. I think you guys are, because you're on topic in the chat. But the elements we ingest and breathe in, we incorporate, we transform with the help of other elementals that are in our body. All of that effort is just to sustain our physical life. If we want spiritual life, we need to take that same phenomenon of transformation to another level. The incorporation and transformation of energy is the basis of spiritual life. We know that the incorporation and transformation of energy is the basis of physical life, and we can see that. We have to take in and transform energy every day, all day, to stay alive. If you stop breathing, you will die. If you stop eating, if you stop drinking water, you will die. Your spiritual life also requires nourishment. If you have no spiritual life now, if you are spiritually dead, it is because you have not been nourished. You need to know the nourishment that will grow your spiritual life. And what is that nourishment? It is to take the elements in consciously and to transform them consciously. It is to be awake in everything you do. If you eat consciously, not only do you nourish your physical body, but you take in nourishment for your consciousness. Even more specifically, there are certain sources of nourishment that are more potent in relation to the elements, but if you digest them unconsciously, you will transform them unconsciously, resulting in nothing different from the rest of the mechanical nature. So, hold on. Okay, infinity. Thanks for that. Oh my god, you guys are still talking about that. My girlfriend took some elements unconsciously. Yeah, exactly, Shadowrunner. That it kind of relates to it too. Like I said, he said, don't eat factory farm if you can help it. And that's kind of the same concept. Oh, thank you. Hold on, I'm gonna drink my tea consciously. Okay, being conscious about it. Sorry for the sipping, it's hot. And that's kind of the, when you, in Mass, when you take the body and blood of Christ, not only is it a magical transformation, ritual that you're doing and this magical thing, but when you consume it, and you are doing it, and you come up to receive the Eucharist, and you have your like that, you have your, you're reaching up for it, and you're being conscious. You walk up consciously about to receive this. You put it in your mouth, and you pray after you put it in your mouth, and you sit there and you pray, and you are conscious about ingesting it, and that is powerful. That is being conscious about what you are ingesting, and that is kind of the purpose to do that with everything you do, with everything you eat, and when you are just like being a robot and just like on autopilot, eating and doing things and whatever, time flies by and it passes by, and you're not really being conscious of your life and appreciating your time and being present in the moment. And that's kind of in Taoism and Buddhism, they talk about that too, as being in the present moment and living in the now, and really being conscious about how you're living all the time. And that changes, it slows down time. You're able to control time. You're able to, appreciate life and the people around you when you do that. But the same goes for nourishment. You're able to consume things and be conscious about where you're consuming, and be have appreciation for it and be thankful for it. That is also why you pray when you eat and stuff. You're supposed to. Sorry, I'm just having my tea break. Cozy tea sips time. Thanks, friend report. Number one way to slow down time: watch YouTube ads long as 10 seconds of my life. Yeah, that, or be conscious of time. Usually when time slows down, it's you being conscious of it. But it's just sad because time does fly by, and it just slips. It's like sand. It's trying to grab a hold of sand, and it just slips through your fingers. But a way to control it a little bit better is to be conscious of it. Hey, Michael McLaughlin. Hey, what's up? Haven't seen you in a while in here. He said, I played poker with a deck of tarot cards. I got a full house and someone died. Oh my god. Cool magic. You know what? Well, that's going to be a thing now. Cool magic. Cool magi. When I'm at work, I'm so conscious of my time, it's killing me. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so I'm just gonna get back into it, but this is kind of good topic that we're dealing with. Let me see. To bring into our spiritual health atoms related to ether, the space. Hold on, sorry. Yeah, so guys, speaking of the Kum magic, it's called Tantra. And these are the basic 3 forces of nature, the 3 gunas, the 3 elements. Hold on, just going through my notes, trying to make sense of it. Okay, so I guess in this thing that I brought up before, back to this thing, these are the elementals and some of the associations. And I guess in the Akash, the ether, there, that AZF, that is some sort of that is actually the sexual energy that we were just talking about, and that is the if you remember the ether, that's the air, that's that fifth element. And what does it say about that? These are three elements. Okay. We see in the chart the letters A, Z, F. This is an alchemical equation. Three elements in harmony that relate to the Trinity. These are three elements that relate to forces in nature that are transformed in one way, which is chaste sexually, white tantra, alchemy. These are the basic three forces in nature, the three gunas, the three elements that here we are calling four, but are transmuted specifically through the retention and transformation, the transmutation of sexual forces. Related to the tattva of air, we can ingest grape juice to get atoms of to nourish our consciousness. So grape juice is associated to it. In the physical juices of the grape are hidden spiritual atoms. These atoms are not only in grape juice, but it is just a primary example that we utilize. There are other elements in nature that have those atoms, which is interesting because that's kind of what we use in Mass as well, too, that grape juice or wine, same thing. And in fact, that is what they used to call wine, grape juice, back, especially biblical times. So I think that's what they mean. Related to fire, we can consciously ingest red meat. That is because in the physical matter of the red meats are spiritual atoms, and if you take them in consciously, you will nourish your spiritual growth and life with spiritual fire. So clearly alchemists are not vegan or vegetarian. Sorry about it. Okay. Furthermore, with water, we can consciously ingest fish, and for earth, we can consciously ingest grains. So we see here there are 5 types of food specifically as sources of atoms related to the tattvas. It is not to say these should be the only foods you eat or that you have to eat them all. What this is saying is that related to these 5 elements, the most potent spiritual atoms related to these 5 elements are in these 5 foods. Yes, we are calling sex a type of food because if you use sexuality in the right way, it does not deplete you of your forces, rather it gives you forces. Most people use sex to deplete themselves, to exhaust themselves, but that is not the right way. Upright sexuality or chaste sexuality utilizes sex in order to nourish the body, the heart, the mind, and the spirit, the soul. In transmutation, spiritual atoms are absorbed physically, psychologically, and spiritually. The clue to do this is every time you eat or drink or engage in any type of sexual activity, you should do it consciously, with full awareness of what you are doing, with full attentiveness, being there, being present, and paying attention to what you are doing. Being conscious, present, here, and now is how you nourish the consciousness. If you are distracted, you are not feeding your consciousness. So let's just stop for a second. And are we all conscious right now? Kitty? Just, it does shift your consciousness when you are present in the moment. And I don't know if you guys are getting that feeling of self-aware, really being present in the moment as we talk about this. But it definitely shifts things when you start thinking about it. Oh, hey, what's up? I didn't see this. I got a 10 Canadian dollars from Alan Rule. He said, what do you think of the anime Full Metal Alchemist? Well, I used to find it annoying because every time I would try to look up alchemy stuff, I kept getting this cartoon thing, and it would get frustrating. But I have heard lots of really good things about it and how it does relate to some real alchemical principles and the stuff that I talk about. And I have some people like Jay that explain to me when I have some alchemy stuff. He's like, "Oh, that's like a Full Metal Alchemist, blah blah blah," and I'm like, "Okay." Like, they used it in a really cool, creative way, which is really awesome. And that's what I want to do with my comic book, is do Lady Alchemy and bring the real alchemical concepts to life through storytelling. And, that's a way of keeping the tradition alive. It was an oral tradition, alchemy, and it was passed down, and there's different ways of passing that information down. And my way to do it is through art. So, you know. Sam Trevor said, I don't know what having sex unconsciously is, but it sounds illegal if the other one is. No, what that means is just mindlessly, just going through the motions and, not, think about how much better that act would be when the two people are fully present and like in that moment where they can slow down time and everything is detailed, or you're just kind of like, drunkenly doing the motions and just depleting your energies, or you guys can fulfill each other and gain more energies through doing it consciously. Does alchemy say one can expand consciousness and be conscious of more things in their mind and body? Yeah, that's the point of doing this research and study. Okay. Oh, cool. We got a new subscriber. Thank you for that. Yeah, try to get me to 10K, guys. I've been waiting for that for a while. It's slow. But, yeah. Okay, let's get back into it. So, you can just simply eat an apple, and if you eat it consciously, the atoms from that apple are transformed and nourish the consciousness as well as the body. But if you eat that apple while thinking of something else, like daydreaming or wandering in memories or fantasies, you only give the body a little nourishment and nothing for the soul, nothing for the consciousness, and it remains asleep. So it's the same thing with the sex, for the person that was asking about that. It's not so much like unconscious, but it's like not fully present and really purposefully engaging in that act for a purpose. To facilitate the nourishment you receive from being conscious here and now, and to make it more powerful, you can use a sacred mantra, which is from Sanskrit, and which we spell krim, but it's pronounced cream. Pronounced like the E. So it's spelled like Crin. Here, let me spell it. It's spelled like this, but it's pronounced cream. Yeah, basically, Sam Jarvis, basically. Pronounce it mentally as you eat, drink, breathe, and have sex. All right. So think about cream when you eat, drink, and have sex. The mantra cream is related to the Divine Mother Kali, who is the destroyer. When you use the mantra cream, you are invoking the power of the Divine Mother to pulverize those elements and separate the bad from the good, separate the subtle from the gross in alchemy, and to absorb the goodness in yourself consciously. This is how you nourish yourself consciously. This is on all levels, physically and spiritually. Now, don't freak out when I talk about the Divine Mother. It's not like the God, but it's Mother Nature is what that means. So we all call Mother Nature. So that's what that means. So where you're invoking Mother Nature to do its thing of, in alchemy, called solvet coagula, which is to separate and combine. So you separate the pieces of the aspects, and you put them back together in a more purposeful way and use it consciously. We recommend, hold on, sorry. Hold on, sorry. Ooh, scared me.
There is a price to pay for being self-aware. It can leave you feeling isolated from those around you in the society.
That is so true, Stephen. That is really, really true. He says, there is a price to pay for being self-aware. It can leave you feeling isolated from those around you and the society. Yeah, I mean, that must be what it's like to be someone that is existing on that upper level of consciousness. It definitely can be. I mean, for example, Jesus was, killed, crucified, for it. No people around him, even the disciples, couldn't really handle him being at that level, and jealousy happens, and people, it's just it can be crazy. So there is also an aspect in alchemy where I've talked about the 4 phases of the alchemical process of transmutation of the Negredo, Albedo, Xanthosis, and Rubedo, and there is a point in there where in Albedo, Cauda Pavonis area, that can you can go insane. So you can certainly go mentally insane studying this stuff, and that is the danger of it. But you have to be strong, and if you want to continue this path. Yeah, no, totally, Stephen. I'm not saying I'm like enlightened like Jesus by any means. But you definitely, as you start to learn, inch your way learning a little bit, just like Stephen said. He said, I'm not saying I'm enlightened, but when you break out of the system somewhat, it makes you see the monotone of everyday life. I find conversation with family boring at times. Yeah, exactly. If people want to talk about sport or reality TV, my mind goes numb and I can't even feel interest anymore. Yeah, exactly. That is kind of what it's like. But, it's the same thing with like taking care of a baby or something. At times it's like, oh my God, this is just like a child is constantly mind-numbingly boring. But you have to be in the present moment and appreciate what that interaction is at the moment. I'm sure you love your family, and even if it is a dumb conversation, take in that moment for what it is and enjoy it and appreciate it. It can be unboring then at times. Infinity asked, what kind of magic do I study? High magic? Yeah, high ritual magic. I'm not really into paganism or any of that stuff. I do like high ritual magic. Like I said, Catholic Mass is a high ritual mass. Priests, magicians, stuff like that. When am I going live again? I will be doing art stream, I promise, on Tuesday. I've been pretty good about art stream on Tuesdays. I just missed it this week, so I had to make up for it by alchemy stream today. But yeah, the schedule should be art stream Tuesdays, 10 p.m. UK time. It's 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and then Thursdays alchemy stream, same time, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Yeah, even to discuss politics, Friend Report has to dumb it down. Yes, I have heard of chaos magic and sigil magic. I mean, I'm not necessarily into like the chaos magic stuff. Maybe I'll read into it a bit. I'm really into alchemy, so that's just a bit more of like stuff like the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. It's pretty not chaotic. There's a certain structure to it. So I don't know. I'll look into it a little bit. Yeah, the sigil magic is cool and all. Yeah, but please watch Santos Bonacci on YouTube. I will. I'm screen capping it, and I will check that out. Thank you. Okay, so let me get back into this. Where was I? So we were doing the mantra cream. So you can eat foods with those elements, not necessarily daily, but at least try to incorporate them when you can. It is especially useful to use these resources when you're dealing with the particular tattvas that those foods are related to. For example, observe someone who has a lot of fire in their psychological temperament, who is a fiery person. If they eat a lot of red meat, they will become even more fiery. So to reduce the intensity of their temperament, they should eat less meat. Similarly, a person who is very irritable or very listful? Did I misspell that? Listful or lustful? Should eat less red meat. An airy type of person who is very mobile, very swept about by life, can counter that by eating more grains. It will give them more solidity and firmness, because grains is earth. So solidity and firmness, it will help them settle down. In this way, we can see that there are subtle influences that we can work with in relation to these foods. Man, I have basically a meat diet. I should eat less meat, because I'm a bit fiery. I am. Nevertheless, all of us, without exception, need the element of the Akash that we derive from sexual transmutation. Whether we are single or in a couple, this is the most important element we need. So, rituals of priesthood. Are you out of here, Stephen? Okay. To become a magician, a priest or priestess, you need these forces in your body, in your atoms, because in order for you to command the forces of nature outside of you, first you have to be able to command them inside of you. We'll get into more of that in future videos and all that stuff, but the way that it is accomplished is important for you to understand. These four elements in conjunction with Akash, and again, remember Akash is that space, the sexual energy, all have specific relationships psychologically, spiritually, and with everything in life. Any goal that you want to achieve will have a relationship with the tattvas, the four elements. So, or five elements rather. So if you have a goal to help someone, you can work with the tattvic elemental forces in order to help that person. There are specific priestly activities, rituals of priesthood that harness these forces. Most people know about the Catholic Mass. That's what I bring up all the time in relation to this. And the function or purpose of the Mass can be found in other religions, but with different names and symbols. The exact same function with different words and different structures exists in Buddhism, Hinduism, etc. In Buddhism, instead of taking what the Catholics and Christians call the Eucharist or the host, the Buddhists take, I don't know how to say it, but it's T-S-O-K, tsok. In each religion, we find the body, wheat or rice or corn, and the wine, grape, barley, beer, etc. And you can learn more about this in the sacraments of the Gnostic Church. In those rituals, in every religion, there are symbolic elements related to the tattvas, the elements, the five elements. Remember, the tattvas is the five elements. The tattvas of the air is sometimes represented by grape juice or wine. It should be non-alcoholic, but in many traditions, alcohol is used, unfortunately. Because in magic, you're supposed to keep your mind, like, pure and not, like, what is it called? Under the influence of anything. You're supposed to be, like, fully present. And alcohol definitely does not make you fully present. The tattva of fire can be represented literally by fire, a candle. While in some traditions it is presented as meat, the tattva of the water, of course, is usually given as water and sometimes by fish. The grain in the West in the Eucharist is wheat, bread, wafers, while in Asia it is rice. The ancient Americans used corn, maize. In every case, the foods are symbolic in the rituals, but when properly consecrated, blessed, and ingested consciously with great awareness and cognizance, they can have spiritual atoms of high value. If you have participated in any religious tradition, you will find the same ritual elements where the congregation will receive blessed food from the priest. That food is really symbolic, and if it is properly blessed, it will convey spiritual atoms that have been blessed and consecrated through the consciousness of the priest. This is the important point. The priest, the magician, is the one who consecrates that event, and through the purity of his or her psyche, brings those divine forces into the foods. And how can that priest do that unless they themselves are pure? They are the vehicle of the force. If the priest or priestess is a fornicator, they are incapable of delivering spiritual atoms to the congregation. In the Bible, we see this established in the very ancient times by Melchizedek, who blessed wine and bread and gave it to Abraham. He was a priest to Abraham, and Abraham was a great magician. Jesus was a priest after the order of Melchizedek. That is how we got the Eucharist of today from Abraham, from Melchizedek, who got it from others. And it is very, very ancient. That is a symbolic ritual in which spiritual atoms are brought in through these elements for the blessings of the congregation in order to give spiritual nourishment. That is the value of those sacraments. We gave, hold on. So the priest performing a ritual has to command the elements. The atoms that are placed in that bread are brought there by pygmies and gnomes. We do not mean literal pygmies or gnomes in the physical world. We are talking about the consciousness elementals related to the tattva of, what is it? The bread, yeah, the tattva of, what's grain? What's the tattva of grain? Earth, yeah. So, yeah, earth, grounded. All the elements have consciousness and their conscious value. We need to know what they are and how to command them. Let me just catch up with what you guys are saying. Okay, sorry. You guys are talking about light. Ein Sof Or. Sam Jarvis isn't saying much because he's cooking. He's transmuting minerals into consumable energy. Remember to be conscious of it. Be conscious of what you're doing and when you're consuming it. Okay, well, I mean, I thought that was very exciting. What about you guys? We're talking about... Well, roaring T-Rex, I mean, it's interesting. So Baptist types Christians don't approve of Mass. We don't think it's Christian. We blame Rome for forcing pagans, witches, etc. to hide as Christians, fleeing persecution. Yeah, it's true, but at the same time, like I've mentioned, the three magi's at Jesus' birth, they were magicians. So it's not just Mass that is like this magical, relationship, this like magician thing. But it and just like I said about the Melchizedek and bringing that type of ritual over to Moses and Jesus and all that stuff. It all comes from way before the Catholic Church. So, and I think before Rome got involved. So I don't really, I think it is. I mean, it is mixed with, magic and all that stuff. So. But yeah, what do you guys think about that conversation? All right. I thought that was actually really fascinating. I like it. The quintessence. Everything about us is derived from the elements, and the elements are derived from one source. To understand this, I want to read to you a quote from Paracelsus, a fantastic alchemist. Paracelsus, one of the greatest doctors this planet has ever seen, and is also a great alchemist, and is one of the teachers of that thing that I mentioned earlier, the Samuel on War. Here, I'll share it with you guys because I don't know how to say it. A lot of times I read this stuff, I don't know how to say things. I'm a reader. The Magi, magician, priest, in their wisdom asserted that all creatures might be brought to one unified substance, which substance they affirm may, by purifications and purgations, attain to so high a degree of subtlety, such divine nature and occult property as to work powerful results. For they considered that by returning to earth, and by a supreme magical separation, a certain perfect substance would come forth, which is at length, by so many industrious and prolonged preparations, exalted and raised up above the range of vegetable substances into mineral, above mineral into metallic, and above perfect metallic substances into a perpetual and divine quintessence, including in itself the essence of all celestial and terrestrial creatures. Paracelsus, The Aura of the Philosophers. I'm going to share that with you real quick if I can. I might have to break that up because, yeah, it won't let me share that much. Hold on. Oh my god, it won't let me comment. Okay, I'll just go back. I did it. In synthesis, when the descent of forces into nature occurs, and all of those forces remains the seed of their source. In all of our atoms is a connection back to the roots in the Ein Sof. Ein Sof is the light bodies, the balls of light. In other words, in every atom of earth, there is a connection back to Akash, the inner self, in which in turn connects back to the root of all things. The root of all things in that scripture was called Atman, or the self. That's when we went to the original part 1 of this, where we talk about spirit and what is spirit, and it's the true inner self, the breath, that divine within us. Paracelsus was stating that it is possible through purification to return the creature back to the ultimate root, and thereby acquiring all power of the magician. Ooh, cool. That root power, the perfection of that energy, is called quintessence. In English, we use this word quintessence a lot now, but its root and true meaning come from alchemy. So think about that again. Paracelsus was stating that it is possible through purification to return the creature back to that ultimate root, and thereby acquire all the power of the magician. That root power, the perfection of that energy, is called quintessence. And quintessence comes from alchemy, but this whole concept of what it's talking about, purification and getting back to that pure inner self, that is what alchemy is. So when people talk about this whole turning lead to gold thing, it's kind of like this eye roll, like yeah, okay, whatever. What it is about is that, yeah, you can change physical things. You can change the elements of the physical world at the same time through that that inner change, being able to purify yourself, perfect yourself, like internally, like through you, who you really are, and that power to utilize your true self and the elements within you, you're able to do things in the outside world. So that's what alchemy is really about. Anyway, okay, so the Tree of Life. Let me see what time we're at. I do want to wrap up in about 20 minutes, 15 minutes. Ah, hey, Hollywood God, thanks. Thank you, thank you. Hold on. Gonna have a little break from my tea. Give me a second. I hope we're almost done with this section, because I gotta move on after the... Okay. Let me show you guys this. So this is the Tree of Life within the human body, and I referenced it a few times before, but as you can see at the bottom there, the sexual chakra, you'll see, is all the way at the bottom, and it says Malkuth, and that is the kingdom. It's Hebrew for kingdom. And in the Bible and stuff like that, you'll notice they talk about the kingdom. They talk about kingdoms and stuff. And in this, the root chakra, the sexual chakra, the Malkut, the bottom one it's represented as like the physical, earthly plane in existence. Like that is like the physical, most basic primitive form of existence. And then up at the top where the head is, it's the Kether, the crown. And that is like the highest form of, level of existing. And yeah, you can weave back and forth between the left and the right chakra side of the Tree of Life. And those, the balls, the circles are the Sephiroths, the Sephiroth. And basically the right side where it says you see it says, I don't know how to say these things, the Chokmah, the Chesed, the mercy. This is the pillar of mercy, the Chesed, the Chesed, and the left side, the Gebura, is the pillar of severity. And it's really interesting because you can do this middle pillar ritual, which kind of circulates kind of like the way that the magnetic energy of Earth. Let me do that. Let's see, magnetic energy of Earth. Oh my God. Kind of like how this looks. You can circulate the energy like that, and that like so let's say the Earth is, us, and you can like circulate between the middle pillars and have it flow through you. And that is the middle pillar ritual, which can harness like the balance of both sides. And you need a little bit of both because, obviously mercy sounds nice and, all those things is lovely, but it can have a negative aspect, which is like not being naive and having too much mercy. You can get taken advantage of. It's not good. And then on the left side, having the pillar of justice and stuff and severity. It can be good and it can be too severe at times. So it's good to have that balance. And there's a whole bunch of stuff attributed to that. And let's just like check it out a little bit. What's going on here? Let me see what's going on. Hey Jay, I'm about to wrap it up in like 15 minutes, so no worries. Let me see where we're at. Okay, so yeah, back to this tree of life. It's on the physical body in this picture. We are a tree of life physically and spiritually. Once again, this is not the physical component we are concerned with. We are really more concerned with the psychological, spiritual aspect of how this tree of life functions in ourselves. Every single portion of the tree of life is a combination of tattvic elements in varying degrees of subtlety and with all of the huge variety we see in all of existence. Everything about us is rooted in the elements, both in the positive, free, unconditioned consciousness, which is symbolized as the upper portion of the tree of life, and also in the conditioned consciousness that is symbolized in the lower portion, which we generally call hell. Hell is our subconscious, our unconscious, and in infra-consciousness. We have our own hell. Hell is the blackness that we see when we look in our hearts and minds. It is what we see in our nightmares. It is all of those elements that surge and fill our psyche with desires and manipulate us and motivate us to perform all the mistaken actions that we perform physically, emotionally, and mentally. Hell is a condensation of elements, the 5 elements, but through mistaken action. So we can see that hell is a karmic cause and effect condensation or crystallization of those elements. That is our ego. That is our karma. So here we are between the two worlds. It is possible to take that quintessence and perfect ourselves. On the other side, what we see, which traps us to become one with the quintessence, and become the perfect magician, priest, or priestess.
Thanks for the live stream, Martina. I really enjoyed it. Folded hands.
Folded hands. I love that. Let me see what she's saying there. So funny. Oh, folded hands. I love the like I don't know, what is it called, the narrator, when she like doesn't understand the emojis. It's so funny. Thanks, Wonder Girl 60s. That's really, really kind of you. I always love seeing you in here. I really appreciate your super chat as well. It's really, really nice. Thank you. I hope you come back. And I'm glad to see Friend Report in here too. Let me see what he's saying. Oh yeah, you're talking about the magnetic force of the earth. I don't know. I'm just brought that up because of my study of math and science, that physics and stuff, is that I knew studying physics what it looked like, the magnetic like field of Earth. I knew what it looked like, and so when I see, again, that math like brain, when I see the middle pillar ritual and that kind of concept, I'm kind of like, oh my god, I see, it looks just like Earth's magnetic field. I'm not sure if there's a relationship between that with anything I'm talking about other than what it just physically looks like to me, the energy of it. But that's like when you do the middle ritual, that's like the shape of the energy that's flowing is supposed to look like that, and I'm just like, that looks like the magnetic field of Earth. Sorry, that's how I know it. Okay, let me get back to it. Sorry about it. Yeah, so we're caught in between two worlds. It is possible to take that quintessence and perfect ourselves. On the other side, we see that which traps us. To become one with the quintessence and become the perfect magician, priest, or priestess requires that our inner hell be purged, purified, destroyed, so that all the energy that is trapped there is liberated. That energy is what creates the quintessence. It is what liberates the forces that raise up to the heavens. This is the essential foundation of spiritual growth. In order for our innermost to grow, we have to free ourselves from our conditioned state, our state of ignorance. In other words, our pride traps the spiritual atoms from being. Our being cannot grow because of our pride. For our being to grow, our pride must be destroyed so that those energies, those tattvic forces, the elements, can be freed, and so that that consciousness can grow. If we do not free the If we do not free the consciousness trapped in pride, destroy pride, and free the consciousness from crystallization, nature will do it for us. And nature's way is very painful and very long. This is what all religions have traditionally represented as hell. It is a process in which we are purified of pride, anger, lust, laziness, gluttony, greed, envy, and all of the other destructive factors that cause us to behave in the wrong way. Nature will purify us and we will not enjoy it. This is the law, and this is how nature functions. So our choice is to let nature do it and suffer, or to do it ourselves. To do it ourselves requires that we learn the science. In this science, we analyze ourselves and appeal for divinity for help, but divinity will not make you feel good about it. Purification is not easy. To be purged of lust requires that you see lust, that you confront it, and that you deal with it. If you avoid it, you cannot deal with it. We have to become conscious about everything about ourselves and remove that which is impure. This is the only way to grow spiritually. If you ignore your anger or your pride or your envy, then you are ignorant. You are in ignorance. And thus you are spiritually stagnant or dead, not growing, and maybe even getting worse. Most likely, we are probably getting worse. Most of us are. The psychological I, the myself, does not become better with time and experience. On the contrary, it becomes more complicated, more difficult, more laborious. And that is in the fundamentals of Gnostic education. Spiritual growth, the growth of our innermost, comes through cognizance, knowledge, and that is knowledge of ourselves. Not knowledge of things, of like random facts and shit, but knowledge of ourselves. I'm just checking in on you guys. Sorry, I'm just looking. I haven't been looking at this. Okay, then it gets into like some of these like Hebrew letters and stuff and the Kabbalah. I'm not sure if I want to go over that right now. Let me see. It just gets like kind of complicated. I do want to go over it, but maybe I'll touch base with it in a little bit later. So as far as purification goes, these basic element functions in our psychology, and we can learn about them through self-observation. What we need to understand is that for spiritual growth to occur, these elements are used to test us, to purify us. Observe the three mother letters. The elements. Where's Earth? Okay, so your body is Earth, and then you have the elements. The other elements that are associated. So yeah, your body is earth. Your mind is air, because your mind is airy. It races. It's constantly like blown around. Your heart is fire, and your waters are sex. Obviously, this is a simplification because remember, all of the elements have all the other elements within it, and we are just describing the basic flavors. If you want spiritual growth, all four elements need to be purified so the quintessence can emerge. So how does that happen? And are you going to do it on your own? Can you find it on your own? If you observe your mind and you observe the destiny and strength of your psychological tendencies, and you compare that to the strength of your free consciousness, you will quickly come to the realization that it is impossible to do on your own. It is impossible, and it cannot be done. It has never been done. You can only do it with the help of divinity within, from the help of the divine. The one that showed us how to do it is David. In the myth of David, we see a young shepherd, powerless, with no training, no weapons, just a boy. But by circumstance, he has to face and defeat the greatest warrior of the Philistine army, who is Goliath. The only thing David has to help him is his faith, armored with Faith, only with faith and divinity, he approaches his enemy and he picks up a stone and kills Goliath with it and then chops his head off. That stone in alchemy is called Sophic hydrolith. Sophic comes from Sophia, which is wisdom. Hydro is water, and Lilith is stone. So that rock is the wise water stone, and the water is in your earth and sexuality. Okay, this gets all like really crazy. And sexuality, like I don't know if this is gonna make sense to you guys. So the Sophic hydrolith is the sexual energy utilized by Sophia, Christ. Wisdom is Christ. That Trinity above will aid us by simulating these elements and use it. Well, it's like this. Basically, the story has this whole like symbolic thing, blah 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 blah, and it gets. And all this like sexual forces and the energy is like important, and you can utilize it, and that's what like sex magic is about too. You can like utilize your like sexual energies, and not everything like when I say sex is like the physical act of sex. It's just like the energy, like there's something different. You guys can look it up, but like sexual energy, sexual forces is something different in magic and alchemy, and it's not so like basic humanoid shit. But yeah, basically the sexual energies begin to receive ordeals, difficulties, psychological tests. And here we get into the 4 ordeals. Okay. Now it gets good. Someone who is generally transmuting their sexual energy. Again, this is not like, ooh, sex. It's just, we'll get into it later. I don't want to stop because I'm about to stop this whole thing, but I do want to get through the 4 ordeals. So basically someone that is generally transmuting their energy will also begin to face a lot of psychological difficulties, because this is how the work progresses. People enter into these types of studies and believe, because they are training in pseudo-occultism, that everything in the spiritual path is an ever-increasing ecstasy. And as soon as you become spiritual, life just becomes rosier and rosier. Spiritually, this is true, but psychologically, it is not. A genuine aspirant for full awakening has to face the entirety of their ego, and all of it, step by step. And facing that is not something we do willingly. We do not want to face ourselves. We do not want to see how foolish we are, because we want to feel proud. We do not want to see what we are. We do not want to see that we are animals psychologically. That we are beasts, filthy, that we are not divine. We want our religion to tell us how divine we are. We want our spirituality to make us feel good, and that is all lies. The truth is that we are dirty and we need cleansing. The cleansing comes from our own inner being. When we begin to transmute our energy, we begin to nourish our spiritual growth. And the most important place that energy can be used is to clean us and not give us experiences in the astral plane. We might get experiences in the astral plane from time to time, but that's not really what's important. What is important is that we become pure. So our innermost, our divinity, is the one who takes that energy to bring the ego up, and to show the ego to us so that we will face it and change. And that comes through what we call the 4 ordeals. These 4 ordeals are related with these 4 elements. When you transmute the energy, the sexual energy, you are transmuting Akash, the inner 5th element. And from that 5th element come the other 4. When you transmute the energy, you give rise to the ordeals that you must face, and you must expect it, and don't avoid the ordeals. You need the ordeals. It is only through psychological tests that you will see what you are and what you are able to change. So you need to know how to use these 4 elements to your advantage in order to conquer the ordeals, and to know how to face ordeals and overcome them. And the 4 ordeals are related with the 4 elements. So yeah, that image that I brought up earlier, I'm going to bring that up again, and it is an image from 1618, and it was crafted by an alchemist named Michael Mayer, and it is the image, 400-year-old image, and it shows the alchemist facing himself, 1 against 4, And those four are four elements, which is, Akash, the ether, willpower, transmuted energy. And he is raising the club over his head, and that club is his will. It is the club of... that's not Hercules. Heracles from the Greek mysteries. Heracles represents willpower, the Christic force, the Christic energy of willpower. That is how you overcome the four ordeals. Christic conscious willpower. Each of these four is an element. One is fire, or air, water, all the elements, and they're coming to get him. But you will notice that they are all him. They are all of him. Let me bring it up. So check this out. This is from 1618 or some shit. And so he's raising the club over his head to fight the ordeals. And you see one of them has fire in his hands, one of them has air, one of them has a rock. So they're all the four elements, but they're all him. So he's coming face to face with him and his own ordeals within those elements. So get a load of that. Get that picture in your head. And we'll get into it a little bit more. Sorry, I'm just seeing what you guys are talking about. I will wrap this up, but let me just go through these ordeals a little bit. He's facing himself. This is the psychology of alchemy. He's the same person facing all of his ordeals. Our being will give us these ordeals. We are going to describe them briefly and what you can understand and expect. So, what are the ordeals? They are psychological tests, circumstances that cause your ego to be visible. Hold on. Let me read. There's a book about this called The Revolution of Beelzebub. And The Perfect Matrimony. Apparently these are some really good books that if you are into this study, you should really check out. So those are some books to check out. Oop, bless you. Yeah, since you're... Ooh. Okay, so yeah, in The Revolution of Beelzebub, there's this big quote. I'm really bad at reading these really ancient quotes, so I'm trying to get through it because I feel like it's important to throw it down. In the White Lodge, the four ordeals are given in order to examine the white disciple's morals. For instance, in the Ordeal of Fire, the discipline is attacked by crowds of enemies who insult him. Instead of returning insults, the disciple offers love towards his enemies. This is how he triumphs in this ordeal. With serenity, he passes through the fire without being burned. Therefore, the four ordeals of earth, fire, water, and air are represented simply for the moral examination of the disciple. All of our defects and moral faults are precisely the negative aspects of the four elements of nature, and we have to convert ourselves into kings and queens of it. In the White Lodge, the four ordeals are accompanied by a verbal test in order to know what level of purification the discipline has reached. All of these ordeals occur in the astral plane. The prepared disciple, that is to say, the disciple who has spiritual maturity, brings the memory of all of this to the physical plane, just as if he had a dream. When we begin to transmute our energy, we begin to receive these types of ordeals. And when we receive them at our level, the beginners receive them for beginners at their level so they can see their ego and be tested. These ordeals continue throughout the entire path until you are finished. In the beginning, we face 4 symbolic ordeals that represent how each ordeal functions throughout the rest of our path. Those 4 symbolic ordeals occur in the astral plane. Most beginners do not remember these experiences. Every initiate faces these ordeals throughout life, both in the astral plane and in the physical plane. We have to face them physically because we create the ego physically. We have ego physically here now, therefore we need to deal with it here. Ordeals get harder if we continually fail them. Ordeals also get harder as we succeed and go deeper into the ego. It is especially more harder and difficult when we are failing our ordeals constantly. Failing our ordeals constantly in the internal world, so that sorry, I'm terrible at reading. That those tests can happen physically. So if you have a dream related to one of these ordeals and you fail, be prepared. The ordeal might come physically too. In every case, all ordeals are given to us in relation with our karma. We face our karma, our ego, through ordeals. This means that the ordeals I face will be determined by the content of my ego and will be different from yours. So let's go through some of the ordeals. The ordeals of air. Ordeals of air are situations given to us by our innermost. Remember, every ego is a consequence of and simulator of karmic consequences, of karmic circumstances. When we have attachments to things, when we depend on material things for our security, when we are attached to money or to people or things or environments or places or status we have, egos created in relation with that circumstance. So in order to see that ego, the circumstance needs to be shaken by a wind, by the air, so that we will see it in ourselves. So in relation to air, initiates that face ordeals related to the loss of what they love. You might find out that your company is going to be closed and you're going to lose your job. And if you're going to lose your job, you can lose your house and everything else. That would be an ordeal of air. You can especially see this in an ordeal because you heard a rumor and your whole reaction is all in your head. It may not even be actually happening, but you hear the rumor and you begin to think about it and your mind gets upset. So it's the air, your mind. It's like all like you're getting upset in your head. The mind races. The mind is very airy. And that ordeal becomes quite intense. All of this in relation with the mind, air. The reality is that we have a lot of conceptual or intellectual obstacles because we perceive as our security or what we love often what we love is just intellectual, just concepts in the mind. So in these ordeals, we are being tested of our psychological mobility, our attachments, our capacity for withstanding adversity, and our detachment from material things. It is painful. You can see this in dreams when you have dreams or visions of falling, or you are on the ledge of on an edge of a cliff, or you are on a very high place and you feel like you might fall and you become afraid. You do not want to lose where you are or what you have. These types of dreams relate to this type of ordeal. How do you conquer an ordeal of air? With willpower, with remembrance of God, with the fifth element. So yeah, I mean, what would another example of ordeal of air be? I mean, it is like, and I try to relate it to myself. So when I think about it for me, how that example was given, it was for me in 2016 when, losing my job and my livelihood and everything. And it was an ordeal. It was very painful. I could see that as an ordeal of air. And certainly it is real life, and losing income and losing things and your reputation, everyone talking about you. it is really scary, and your mind does race, and it's really depressing. But yeah, ultimately, it is just, I still have my health and myself and, whatever. But it's definitely just an ordeal that you can overcome, I guess. Yeah, dread. Yeah, that's true. Dread. So just think about ordeals of air with that. And then there's the ordeal of fire. In ordeals of fire, we will be attacked with fire, persecuted. We will be wronged, criticized, blocked, or obstructed, betrayed in order to rouse our anger, our passion, our emotion, our resentment. This ordeal tests our temperament, our sweetness and serenity. We all have our own flavor of fire in our psyche, different types of egos that are fiery. In dreams, we can see big fires, flames, or the threat of being burnt, all in different forms. Also, criticism can come in the form of arrows and bullets in dreams. So if someone is shooting at you, that is criticism. Also, if someone is stealing your wallet or your ID, they are doing that to steal your image, to gossip about you, to criticize you, to spread negativity about you. That can also be an ordeal of fire. Remember, these ordeals can also happen physically. Oh, yeah, they can, because that happens to me too. Definitely have people trying to persecute or wrong or spread, bad gossip and criticize and spread negativity about you. It certainly happens to me physically. But remember what it said about, someone trying to test your temperament and do these things to you. And it's not necessarily being passive and letting people stomp all over yourself, but just think about someone really trying to hurt you, and not in a passive aggressive way, being like, well, I wish you well, and being sassy about it. Just genuinely from your Atman, from your Akash, from within you, are genuinely compassionate back to them. You know that they are probably suffering from some sort of inner turmoil themselves, and their own hell and their own personal issues, and you genuinely give back love and grace back to them. It's pretty powerful, I think. Something I haven't been able to do. Because that test of temperament certainly does affect you. Okay. Yeah, I've certainly dealt with this. This is probably Ordeal of Fire. Woo! Definitely. Ordeal of Water. The Ordeal of Water is where our circumstances change radically, and this is the test of our fluidity and adaptability. It is also tests our altruism and philanthropy. The reason is that generally we consider our circumstances only in regards to our well-being, not others. To our well-being and not others. The inclination of the water element is to give life. So when we have an ordeal with water, it is usually in relation with our happiness for others, or our generosity or lack thereof. With this ordeal, we can have dreams of drowning, raging waves or seas, floods. We can be trapped out in the ocean or trapped out on a great water. You can also have dreams of rain. Rain specifically symbolizes karma is coming, something difficult and painful. If you dream of a big rainstorm and you are getting soaked, you are going to suffer some kind of karmic scenario that will be painful. Yet, if you dream of having an umbrella, that can be your being or your psychological work or some protection. So if you dream that you have an umbrella and the rain is around you and you are not getting wet, that means you have protection, and that is a good dream. Oh, that's an interesting one. So relation to others' happiness or generosity or a lack thereof. That one I'm not so familiar with. The Ordeal of Earth. Ordeals of Earth are where we are obstructed, have no way to proceed with our goals. We are restrained or weighed down. If you have a dream where you cannot walk, oh, this happens to me all the time. You are trying to run but are too slow, oh, it happens to me all the time. You cannot get any speed, then you are weighed down, either by being asleep or by attachments or psychological habits. Yeah. Ways of seeing things that make you stuck. You cannot move the way you need to. That is the Ordeal of Earth. Ordeals of Earth test our solidity, perseverance, and ability to deal with inconveniences. Ordeals of Earth can also be like where we feel we are being crushed. So if we see in a dream that we are being crushed between giant rocks, or we are being buried alive, or somehow we are doing something in relation with a mountain or a cliff, these can be related with the Ordeals of Earth. If you have a dream of an earthquake and everything is changing, it is related with your circumstances. Everything is going to change. This is an ordeal related to change. Yeah, I definitely have that burden thing in my dreams, for sure. Okay, so those are some of the ordeals, and oh, the stream is getting really shitty, but it's past time for me. So let me know if you guys have any more questions or comments. I would love to, hear about some of your ordeals, some of your interpretations of the ordeals, what you guys think about that. Any more super chats or anything else you guys want to... Jay, it is not that simple. There are 4 reasons for dreams. One of them is firing random brain, just firing off random ass shit, just anything in your head. Then there is stuff that maybe has been in our mind, and I forgot, I haven't read about this in like 6 years, but there's quite a few different things about dreams. It's not just this, like, dreams are one of the things that are actually really unknown. We don't have a lot of understanding about dreams, but there's a few different things about dreams, and one of them is just random shit in our head. That's just cells are firing. Not cells, the neurons are firing. Sure, but there's a few other elements to it. It's not just one thing. And I certainly can share an experience with trying to work on my magical abilities, and it was keeping a dream journal, it said. So I kept a dream diary and would write down every day, every night, my dreams, and I started to realize that all my dreams were kind of like one of these ordeals. It was like constantly being chased or something negative, someone dying, like it was all just like negative. And it wasn't necessarily interpreting the individual dreams. It was just over a period of time, I realized that my unconscious, my subconscious, was weighed down. There was like I was not like okay subconsciously. There was a lot of pressure and a lot of weight, and there was just, that was deep within me, and that was coming out, what I realized after having a dream journal and looking up the pattern. I was like, oh, my subconscious is definitely not settled. I'm constantly looking over my shoulder, psychologically looking over my shoulder. So yeah, that was an interesting thing about dreams that I could interpret, and it wasn't necessarily, oh, I dreamt about this, so this is going to happen. It was just kind of like, wow, I could understand something about myself, something about my psyche, something about my emotional state through keeping this dream journal. And it wasn't just random shit. It was the way that my psyche was interpreting how I was, and trying to give me that feedback. Okay, what? Oh my my god, Jack is in this chat. He's trying to understand his dreams now. um, when I was a child, I had a recurring nightmare that I was in a Roman amphitheater and King Kong would beat me up in front of a crowd. Oh my god.
True. I was terrified of gorillas.
Oh my god. Gorillas. Sam Jarvis says, but I used to have a lot of nightmares too. A lot of getting bashed and being powerless to protect the ones I cared about. Yeah, I mean, there's something definitely deep rooted to that. And especially when it's like constant. Like I said, that dream journal, I can't even, the individual dreams didn't mean much to me. It was just the bigger picture of it was like my subconscious is not okay. Like I am constantly anxious and on edge and looking over my shoulder about stuff, and that was my inner self trying to tell me that it was coming out in that way. Yeah, flying dreams, that's really cool. I love that. Definitely have falling dreams. But I don't know, these ordeals too, not just the dreaming aspects of it, but them coming to life, like coming face to face with ordeals. Definitely had that in real life, and it's interesting when you study this stuff to learn how to handle those ordeals, because life throws shit at you, and it is interesting to internalize the proper reaction, or the proper kind of reaction, the proper way to interpret these horrible things happening, and it definitely makes it seem like they can be overcome. Jack versus Kong, the game.
Boring game, I always lost.
He always lost. Everyone carried umbrellas, but I had a field which protected me from getting wet. That's a good dream, according to this. So, all right. If there's anything else, let me know, guys. I'll read out your little. Spend the next few minutes. Just checking out. Dream hangovers, anyone? Just me? Dream hangovers? What do you mean by that? Yeah. Oh, wait. All right. Maybe I won't spend a few minutes. You guys are just talking about Jack and Kong. I hope your week is ordeal free. Thank you, Perth Comics. Thank you. Yeah, I will get. There's a lot to talk about with the comic and the tarot cards, but don't you worry. I will let you guys know about everything. Oh, Conservative UK. Really? It's late in the UK and you came in just now? I'm about to wrap it up. I'm getting out of here. I'm just reading last comments. But I do have to go to the bathroom really bad, so I might just call it a wrap unless anyone else has anything super interesting to say. Oh, hey, Cody Clark, what's up? Said, hey, I gotta run. Just wanted to say hi. I'll watch later. Yeah, check it out later. This isn't particularly an art stream. This is an alchemy stream, so maybe it's not your thing. I feel like the art stream is more your thing. But, check it out anyway. I definitely want to feature you and talk about your stuff. Maybe you can come on the stream sometime and show off your great work. So, you are smart with a great personality, and the world is your oyster. Believe it. Oh, thank you, Roger. Roger Claiborne. What a fancy name. I hope Jack's week is gorilla-free. Oh, thanks, friend report. Check out the beginning half of the stream. I forgot to tell you that I was streaming, and I was like, oh no, he needs to be in here. But yeah, check things out. And I would love to have you on a stream as well for Alchemy stream. That would be great. Because I've seen heard some of your streams, and definitely got the esoteric stuff going on, and that would be great to talk to you about that. Great. That'd be great. We got Cody Clark for Art Stream, and we got Friend Report for Alchemy Stream. Let's do it. All right. I'm just wasting time now. I'm getting out of here. Bye, guys. Thank you so much. Okay.